Okay, folks, so I would be remiss if I didn't do another short video talking a little bit more about the Clark County Mass Casualty Database update and everything. And this was just published on October 7th. But there was a database that was established and been up and running since 2023, um, a system that is used for mass casualty events or incidents. And they ended up passing and making it a law. Um, and in this agenda item here, it says approve, adopt, and authorize the chair to sign a resolution formally establishing the Mass Casualty Impacted Persons Database as Clark County's official AV50 electronic database, which will serve as the centralized platform to identify and reunify victims during mass casualty incidents. It has a secure permission-based system for information sharing among the coroner, medical examiner, law enforcement agencies, healthcare facilities, and victim services, including coordination with the designated statewide victim assistance center to support long-term recovery. So basically, it's a database just in case there's a mass casualty incident and they need to track survivors or victims. And it's been mandated now. Any healthcare facility, law enforcement, all of these different places that would be handling the victims would have to register that victim in this database. You have to be registered in this database if you are a victim. Okay. And this was when it was originally pre-filed, November 19th, 2024. And they've updated it and amended it and all that. And it's a done dealio. But I had done a video on that because I just thought that it was kind of concerning that we have to have a mass casualty database nowadays, right? And it's a thing that kind of just sends up a couple of red flags for me, you know. But I do find it very interesting too, since we're now into October, which I would consider mid-October. Um, we've got MB Energy that's been talking about this wildfire self-insurance policy, where they wanted to raise rates. You know, MB Energy seeks to hike rates to fund self-insurance policies against wildfires, and this was published back in January of this year. And they were given, um, let's see, the first time that it went through, it wasn't established. They want to. Nevada Energy is asking the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to allow it to establish a $500 million self-insurance fund in order to have adequate liability insurance in the event of a catastrophic wildfire alleged to have been caused or exacerbated by utility equipment. The fund would bring utilities coverage to close to $1 billion. So in other words, they want the residents and the customers to pay a little bit higher rate every month. For customers down in Southern Nevada, it would increase 50 cents per month. And to those in Northern Nevada, it'd be $2.40 a month. Okay. Because they don't want to have to pay out if their equipment ends up causing a wildfire, which seems to be the theme. I'm just saying that seems to be the thing that happens, like out in California and everything too, right? It says here that catastrophic wildfires, and this wildfires here, it's not wildfire if it's caused by your faulty equipment, which is what they have said in multiple conclusions of multiple um, investigations that have been done. I mean, they're talking here about Pacific Palisades again, and it was recently talked about again, you know. And they say that catastrophic wildfires present an existential challenge to utilities across the western United States, including in Nevada. The filing says, adding that utilities in numerous states have sought additional financial protection to prevent negative financial consequences to customers in the event that a catastrophic wildfire is alleged to be caused or exacerbated by utility equipment, which can expose utilities to enormous liabilities that must be prepared for prudently in advance. Because a bunch of people were suing these utility companies for actually causing these wildfires. And now I want to point out really quick, quite a while ago, I had already put up a video showing the installation of these really high powered utility lines that were put in along the Lake Mead foothills over here in Southern Nevada and Henderson. I have some video footage that I had captured, and we live right over in here, so I had like a direct line to where they were putting in these big utility lines, high powered lines. Okay, the kind of lines that Dutch Sense usually points out in his videos that are either near earthquakes or wildfires and such. But I have video footage showing the linemen dangling from the helicopters while they were putting in these high powered lines over in this area. So, and it was just recent. They haven't been there, but maybe 5 or 6 years that the high powered lines have been in this area over here, in between 564 and the new I-11 right here. And I'm going to bring that back up. This space right here, I think could be relevant. And it's just my own opinion. It's just my own conclusion, I guess, if you want to say. But the fact that they're following the same type of protocol, the same type of thing that California has been doing, you know, utilities challenged to procure insurance at a reasonable cost are turning to self-insurance, the filing says, noting that California Public Utilities Commission approved the creation of a $1 billion self-insurance fund for the state's two largest cities. The policy sought by Embry Energy would be in addition to liability policies currently held by the company's subsidiaries in the South and in the North. The company currently has $405 million in liability coverage with a $10 million deductible per incident. So basically, like I said, They want to make their customers pay a little bit extra just in case, because we want to continue to follow California's lead in handling wildfires, right? Am I right? I mean, come on, really? It says NV Energy has filed a notice of intent to submit an application for a general rate increase by the end of February, and new rates would also go into effect October 1st. Well, now they've had um, until mid-October, which is now, to come up with some additional information about a scandal where they were actually found to be guilty of overcharging residents. Okay. So there's a little bit of scandal going on there. I just find it alarming, we'll say. It's alarming to me that our local energy company wants to take out additional insurance policies and money and funds from the customers to pay for additional insurance just in case we fall in that 18th percentile that they say. It's 18% chance that Southern Nevada here is going to have issues with wildfires because of their power lines. Okay, mind you, like I said, they just put in a fresh bunch of very high powered power lines right through this area right here. And speaking of this area right here, okay, there was a project that was denied where they wanted to put in a highway to go in here, much like what they essentially want to do is they want to cut off Henderson from anyone traveling down from the north that's coming in from the north that wants to just continue on southeast and head towards Arizona area and Boulder City area. They want to cut off Henderson from that route because right now, if someone's coming down, they have to come down through the hills here and then they have to go down through Iowa. This is like the only way out. And they have to go through all of this. If they're coming down from the north, you know, they have to come down through Las Vegas. They have to cut through all of this in order to continue on these three routes right here, which head out of southern Nevada. And what they wanted to do years ago, not that long ago, it was shot down by the people that live here in this area. They wanted to put in an additional section of highway that goes from here down through here along the Lake Mead foothills, the recreation foothills down through here, and then connect into the I-11 so that anybody coming down from the north here doesn't have to go through Henderson. Essentially, cut off Henderson, which is basically what they did to Boulder City. When they put in and redid this whole I-11 thing, they kind of cut off that little route through Boulder City that people would have to take in order to get to the Hoover Dam. I mean, they haven't cut it off completely. It's still there. As you can see, the route is still there, but they've put in this super highway here where you can travel faster and where you don't get stopped by the city and you don't have to patronize Boulder City. And they created this thoroughway all the way around it to get to the Hoover Dam. They basically cut off Boulder City from the tourism coming down from the north, basically is what they did. And anyone coming from the east from this direction on 93 that would normally go through Boulder City and then up through, they can take this route right here and avoid Boulder City. Basically, it cut Boulder City off. And I think that's what they essentially want to do right here, too. They want to cut Henderson out so that people can just take a highway in this stretch right here. They want to put a highway in here. Well, if you notice, they've been putting in a whole lot more housing up in here. They've just been building this up. There is so much more housing. All of this has been filled in with big housing tracts in neighborhoods. And when they first made the proposal to put in that highway, these residents said, no, nope, we don't want a big ass highway, a noisy highway running through where we've got our ranches, because there's a lot of ranch homes down in this area. There's a lot of homes here that have like horses and chickens, and there's a lot of country folk, we'll say, that live in this area right here. And they said, no, we don't want your highway coming through here. So the idea of it was kind of scrapped, but I think they still want to do it, folks. They still want to put that in there so that all the hoity-toities and people coming down from the north here and from these other areas don't have to go through Henderson. They can just come down here and bypass it completely. And what's one sure way? One sure way to get people to move. How do you get people to move from an area where you want them to do something different with the territory, with the land? You burn them out. You burn them out. And it's very interesting that the talk of NV Energy raising the rates to cover insurance, and just in case their power lines and their utility equipment causes a wildfire, in quote, air quotes, I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it, but wildfire. And the high power lines are right in here, sets it right up, set right up. And all of these people that oppose their little highway project that they wanted to put in could end up getting burned out. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's absolutely going to happen. I have no way of predicting and seeing the future, but I can say that there are several other instances where utility lines have caused wildfires, and there have been several documented instances where the owners of certain properties and people who run certain projects for cities and the Department of Transportation and such, and land developers will just go through and burn an area out rather than going in and removing everyone and removing property, removing trees, and having, like in the instance of a forested area, which has happened repeatedly over in certain parts of California, rather than the developer having to cover the costs of clearing out a bunch of trees in an area that they want to build on, rather than doing that, they just burn it out. It's like burning it, purifying it, and then they just grade the ground and build on. So I just, myself personally, I think there should be a little bit of an awareness. People should be aware. Anyone that's living over here in Henderson and in Southern Nevada needs to be aware that there's a possibility some of these high-powered lines and some of these solar array fields, which they've expanded it. They haven't updated Google because they've expanded the solar field here. Anyone living in those areas and down in here, run the risk, and the potential is there for a so-called wildfire to start. So I just think that it's something that people should be aware of, and the fact they've just updated their mass casualty database to include a mandated reporting from all of these different agencies for a mass casualty incident is just, to me, it sends up a little bit of an alarm. I'm not sitting here telling you it's the end of the world and a doomsday and to, you know, go out and buy a bunch of prepper stuff, but just be aware because, the potential is there. And that's coming right direct from, you know, MB Energy. That's coming right direct from the people in charge of all of this utility equipment and these high powered electrical lines and things that are going in. They are telling us the risk is, it's like 18%. There's an 18% chance that their equipment could cause a wildfire. That's why they want more money as for insurance, right? Because their insurance is paid off to help the folks over in California, huh? Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I would be remiss if I didn't share the information. And, because I'm narcissistic and selfish, I have to share my own opinion and what I think, we could be getting set up for here in Southern Nevada, especially since they actually say they're following, PG&E, and they're following California's path that California's been on. And we all know that's worked out really good for California, right? Yeah, right? Am I right? Yeah. Yeah. Boy. Anyway, stay safe and mindful. Know that I appreciate you and know that you matter very much to me. And it matters very much to me that you stay safe and you stay mindful.